Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Glad, hope everybody's safe on the road today in Louisiana, or if you're listening anywhere in the country. We're getting viewers, I think, from all over the country, Atlantic Coast, West Coast, East Coast. I think we might even have a Hawaii listener, possibly, Virginia, Texas. A lot of Texas people are listening, Mississippi, Alabama. We're going to not just talk Louisiana, but obviously the focus is the big three sports: basketball, football, baseball, high school, college, and pro. But today's show is going to be about LSU football because it's spring practice, man, and it's time to, turn the page on the 2020 season, 2019 season, LSU national champs. Jace, we're going to go ahead and talk about the LSU team, and it's a whole new team. And I want to just say, this will be my 37th or 38th team to follow, almost 40 years of teams. Every year is going to be a challenge for the head coach. Ed Orgeron just won the national championship. They just went 15-0. They have possibility of 19 players drafted, which is insane. I think 16 went to the combine, Jace. Bedora Tabori could be a 17th draft pick. Derek Dillon could be 18, and Fajuco could be 19, the D tackle. If those, it's really, really possible. Dillon runs 4.4 and 4.4 in the 40. Fajuco benches over 550, 600 pounds. And Bedora is a 6'7", 330-pound tackle that probably would have started for most teams in the United States last year. I think Oklahoma, he would have started, maybe even Clemson. He was a good, I call it a wing guy, the sixth guy. He'd come in as the third tackle.
The swing guy, as they refer to him. Yep.
He's from Massachusetts, but to lose 19 NFL players. Now, I'm not saying all 19 will make a team, but I'm going to tell you what, with the practice squad, this is going to be historic. This is going to back up saying it's the greatest team ever, possibly, because if you have 19 players on NFL rosters, counting the practice squad, that's insane. Jace, that's insane. So, and what's really insane is that this team has a chance to be better, in my opinion, than in 2019-2020 because the recruits that they've been signing the last 2 years are more talented, and the young guys they redshirted on the O-line are more talented. Now, the difference is quarterback. So if Brennan just becomes a very good all-SEC type quarterback, I'm not even going to say All-American, I'm not going to say Heisman Trophy, just in the running for all-SEC. That's going to be hard to do too. There's always going to be two or three quarterbacks. And I think the quarterback at Florida, even though he's not a pro prospect, Trask, is probably the leading guy going into the season. He's going to be probably on the best team. I like Dan Mullen. I think he's a great coach. So getting into this LSU team, let's start with quarterback. Miles Brennan, finally 215 pounds. He might be 220 come fall. He's been waiting his turn. He's got a great arm. Can he do this in games? Can he throw the ball against Texas week 2? Can he throw the ball under pressure? Can he run under pressure like Joe Burrow did? Just not Joe Burrow, but can he continue to do the things you need to do to win championships? I don't know. I think the kid's got a lot of ability. He's mature. His body's mature now. It's just a matter of, in fairness, he hasn't played a lot.
It's not really his fault because, with Joe Burrow coming in and weighing his turn in a couple of years. But give kudos to him. A lot of quarterbacks in this day of age, the transfer portal, they would have transferred 2 years ago, but he stuck the course, and now he gets his shots. He gets his opportunity.
Yeah.
We'll see what he does with it.
So Miles Brennan, let's say, has a good year. LSU's at least 10-3, a good year. A really, really good year, then they're in the conversation again as a potential playoff team. And, if you get in the playoffs and you got a chance to win it all, one of 4 teams. If Miles Brennan was to get hurt, this is where it becomes a mess. Then you have 2 freshman quarterbacks, true freshmen. One, TJ Finley, that I don't think's ready to be a quarterback starter at this level. He's got a 90-yard arm. He's 6'7", 250. he can get on his knee and throw it 90 yards. I've seen Jamarcus Russell do it. I saw Terry Bradshaw, old film of him. I'm talking about this is how far we're going back with Louisiana natives. TJ Finley just needs to become a quarterback. I think he needs a year, you know. Johnson, the freshman from Georgia,
Johnson, yep.
he's got a little bit more feel for the game right now. Doesn't have the arm that TJ has a good arm, but he's 6'5", probably about 220, might be 225 come fall. He's grasping the offense. He's a coach's son. I think when it's said and done, Max will be number 2 if there's an injury. Peter Parrish, I was kind of thinking he probably would leave. It hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah.
If he doesn't leave, I think it'd probably be one of those things he'll probably end up leaving, you know, because he's got to beat out Finley and Max Johnson, and that's going to be tough to do. Peter's a guy that's probably just better off at a 1AA program or a low D1 school. I could see him going to Southern Miss or Sanford or Troy, one of those schools. But I wish Peter would come in and stay, stay for spring and just fight it out, right? You know, just see what happens. I mean, he's a 6-foot quarterback, about 190. He won a state championship at Phoenix City in Alabama. They won 38, I think, out of their 40 games, 3 years that he was there. But I'd love for him to compete. I just don't like kids leaving before they're actually competing for the job. Like, why would you leave before they even name a starter? You know, you kind of like bailing out before, you know, and I'm not saying he's leaving. It hadn't been announced yet.
Right. There's been a lot of indications too, as what's going on as of now. And, you know, Coach O said that Miles is going to get all the first-team reps until somebody beats him out. So maybe he took that to, you know, to heart, I guess.
Well, compete. You know, he hasn't even been in LSU a whole calendar 12 months. I do see LSU still taking a graduate transfer quarterback because
just in case of an injury. Yeah.
This is not, you know, I don't think Miles Brennan should always look at it as, hey, this is a message, I'm not the guy. It's not, but they have to look after the program. And if Miles was to get hurt and you got 2 true freshman quarterbacks that are not ready, then you need an older guy. And so it's going to take a special quarterback to come into LSU saying, look, I'm not going to start. I might not even be second team when this is over, but if there's an injury, I am the guy. I am the older guy that can come in and at least hand off, run the offense, you know. And so there's got to be – I don't know who that guy is going to be because these quarterbacks today, they want to be told they're going to start when they're a graduate transfer, especially the guys that are eligible. And so that's going to be unique to follow. But what's really good about quarterback is that a lot of guys that graduated are going through spring to see where they are on the depth chart that are much older than a Peter Parrish. And we'll see if they just want to go somewhere and get a ring somewhere, you know, or just be a part of a great program. Like, you know, if you're at Ohio State and you're not playing and you're 4th string and you're better than the young guys at LSU, why not?
I mean, you saw the year when Ohio State won the national championship. And, I mean, first off, Braxton Miller, he gets hurt. And then JT Barrett, he plays well, and then he gets hurt.
Now you XFL guy.
And then Cardell Jones steps up. So there's opportunities. I mean, you're just one broken ankle away from getting into the game and really being the guy at LSU.
I'll look for LSU to take they got 3 scholarships left from the class. I really do think they'll get the linebacker from North Dakota. I can't see why he wouldn't come join up with Pelini. He knows him, and he fits what Phillips was. He replaces Phillips, Jacob Phillips. Mm-hmm. And I think they could still get a center. And I think they're holding one for a quarterback because you have to. I mean, you can't just, you know, function with an 18-year-old kid that's not ready to go, not in this conference.
I mean, you need, in the SEC, you need to make sure you have 2 guys that you can rely on.
Yeah, that's why Peter Parrish, I hope he stays because he's an older guy. He's got a year in. He knows the system, and he'd be the next guy up, you know?
Right.
Let's turn, and I give the quarterback position, I think it'll still be about a B+, maybe an A when it's done because Miles is a 3-year guy.
I mean, with his skill set, he's a good fit for this offense. But we have to see it all in the game.
We might not ever know how good Miles is with Jamar Chase because Jamar can catch 10 a game. Just get him the ball.
Right. I mean, not just Jamar, but all these receivers.
Yeah.
That's the deepest position group on this football team. So he's definitely got a lot of weapons to work with.
Well, that's what we're going to go to next is Jamar Chase is the best receiver coming back. If there was one award last year, the Biletnikoff Award that he won, and it wasn't based off stats, let's just say they gave it to him. He had the stats, but there's not a more physical receiver in the United States. There's not a more better route runner, and his hands are like stone. I mean, he's got huge hands that when the ball's near him, if you watch all those big plays, Jace, this past year, he went up and caught a lot of passes vertically and out-muscled receivers, DBs, and made average first-round draft pick guys look very average.
Just look what he did in the national championship game. He had like 3 touchdowns, over 200 yards, and a lot of people say it's the system, Joe Burrow, but it's not. He is the real deal. He's the best wide receiver in the country. You can see why.
I saw that in high school, and he wasn't a 5-star. That's what's wrong with these rankings. He was not like a consensus 5 guy, right? But if you're watching what a kid can do and you see it in that kid, he didn't have the stats that a lot of these guys have coming out of these power programs. Rommel ran the ball more when J. Rolfe had a great offense. It was balanced.
And he did have some injuries in his high school career as well.
He did, but he wasn't going to catch 80 passes a year at Rommel.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the team. And so I think Jamar could catch another 80, 90 this year still. I wouldn't put it past him getting another 1,500 yards, receiving and maybe another 15, 16, 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's very likely because you might say, oh, they're going to just double team him, but like when you got other receivers, what LSU LSU has like Terrace Marshall and all these guys, then they can't just double team them. And just basically picking it off, Lee, you have Jamar Chase, this Biletnikoff guy, but if you look back, Terrace Marshall before his injury, he had more touchdowns, receiving yards. He was looking to be that guy. So now if you have both of these guys healthy for Miles Brennan, this offense can be very productive once again, even though Joe Burrow's not calling the shots.
Well, the key is LSU's going to have the 2 best starting wide receivers in the SEC now. Now that Jerry Judy's, went pro from Alabama and
Henry Ruggs.
Yep. Even though Smith's back for Alabama and even though they have Waddle back, I don't put Waddle up there with Chase. I'm sorry.
He's just a speed guy, but he's exciting, a playmaker.
Yeah.
But as far as like,
how good will Waddle be being the number 1 guy now? He had 2 guys that were taking away double coverage from him.
Right.
So now Waddle's going to be double covered, and they're going to leave Smith open because Waddle's the playmaker. I think Waddle's stats are going to be cut in half. Now, he still might be a good punt returner. But I still think, again, Terrace Marshall, he's such a glider. At Parkway High School in Shreveport, he was so gifted, and he's that way at LSU. If you see him down the field, if you give him a 5-yard cushion, again, he's vertical. You put the ball up, he caught 90% of his balls, and he caught a lot of touchdowns, missing a lot of games. And he's home running in the end zone. He doesn't drop end zone balls.
If you think about last year, as far as big targets to throw the ball up to, Joe Burrow had the most confidence in Marshall in those goal line
inside
situations.
the 15, 10.
Right. Yep.
And it was short pockets. Mm-hmm. And Terrace caught that ball, under a lot of, coverage. It had the safety, the corner, the linebacker, and Joe would put the ball there. But, those hands, again, big hands. So if I'm a team this year, a receiver, LSU's got the best receiving core, I think, in the United States, with just saying Chase and Marshall. Now,
we haven't talked about the rest of them yet.
I'm a bit. Everybody's going about Palmer from Kentwood.
Trey, right?
But hold up on that. Racey McMath is going to be great. McMath did great by being really the 4th guy, if you really want to look at it.
Yeah, he showed some plays during the season, and that big long touchdown catch against Mississippi State really helped the offense get going in that game. So.
Racey's 6'3", about 225, runs like a receiver, built like a tight end. It wouldn't shock me, Jace, if come fall that he might move over in that tight end spot a little bit, put on another 5-10 pounds. All of a sudden he looks like Moss. It could happen.
You have him, and of course, there's a lot of hype with the tight end, Eric Gilbert.
But to continue with receivers, Trey Palmer is going to be another guy in space that can make plays. He's built and runs more like a Beckham. He's a more smooth guy, track guy that can play football. 6'1" when he came in, about 160. Now he's about 180. So he's put that weight on. Again, I think Racing McMath's going to be a 3 guy. He's proven. 4 will be Palmer. And then 5, I love J. Ray Jenkins.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what do you think about J. Ray Jenkins?
He reminds me a lot of the kid that's with Jacksonville Jaguars from LSU that played at Winfield.
DJ Chark?
Yeah, came out of Ash, but was at Winfield before that. J. Ray's 6'4", about 210, 4'5". Man, he looked like lightning in a bottle when they got him the ball last year, when they did get him the ball. I mean, I didn't even try to throw it to him the last 7 games, but the first few games when everybody got to play, he caught a ball over the middle, man, and he looked like Trey Palmer, but 6'4", 210. If you look at McMath and you look at J. Ray Jenkins and you look at Palmer, unbelievable crew of receivers. And then you got Keyshawn Butte.
Yeah, Keyshawn.
Who can come in and play, but he's going to be, I think, a punt returner for LSU. And then you got the talented Coy Moore, who broke your heart, Jace, with Catholic High.
Oh, did he? Yep.
Coy is from Rummel, where Chase went. Coy Moore is going to be spectacular. He just needs to fill out a little more. He needs to put a little weight on. He's got great hands. He's got those strong hands. And LSU, I saw that in Coy. Coy's had some injuries too. Mm-hmm. But when the ball's in traffic and vertical, he goes up and gets it. And he can run. He can run for days. So, unbelievable 7 to 8 receivers. And people say, well, the LSU only has 9 receivers. Well, it's 9 All-American potential receivers. And then let's go ahead and go to tight end. We talked about Racing McMath.
Sure.
I think he could make that move in the fall or in the spring. But Eric Gilbert, the greatest tight end to ever come out of high school, the most publicized tight end to ever come out of high school. When I was growing up, David LaFleur was a big deal, played All-American out of Westlake. He went to LSU, played for the Dallas Cowboys, first round. Eric Gilbert is like a guy that came out of the lab for tight end. 6'5", 253, 4.45, 40. Great hands, and after the catch, he runs like J. Ray Jenkins. I can't wait to see it. I hope it all comes across, and I hope it all really materializes like they say it will, because if he's anywhere near how good they say he can be, my gosh, Miles Brennan, can I play quarterback at LSU? I mean, Jace, Miles Brennan's going to have more talent than Joe Burrow.
Yeah, if you think about it. And Joe Brady even said that, like, if Eric Gilbert was playing on last year's team, he would be getting at least 10 targets a game. And this was him out of high school.
Well, there's one more tight end coming back. I call it the now or never. Now or never for the NFL. Jamal Pettigrew. Jamal's always been super talented. 6'6", 6'7", 270 now. All muscle. Runs 4.6. His hands need to become the way he looks, meaning he needs to, like, maybe want the ball a little more. He needs to become a little bit better blocker, and he needs to just show a little more toughness. But this is the year. Now, Moss was out for 2 years straight. People gave up on Moss. Some people did. And I'm like, I didn't know if Moss would ever play. Mm-hmm. So, in fairness to Pettigrew, he sat out the year before.
Yeah. Yep.
He came off an injury. He still wasn't really right last year. And so Jamal's 100%. I'm interested to see Jamal reaching his potential, because when he played at St. Augustine in New Orleans, I watched him play, and he weighed 250. He was 6'6". He could run a 4.55. He caught maybe 10 balls. Now, St. Aug didn't throw it a lot back during when he was playing it and have a really throwing quarterback. But Pettigrew, if he becomes what he's capable, and then you got Gilbert, wow. And then you got the fullback, Torrey Carter, who plays tight end, who I still think needs to go to linebacker. And then you got a walk-on named Brandon Hubex from your old high school, Catholic High
School, yep.
I think with a little bit of weight. His dad, Jim Hubex, was all SEC at LSU. And then you have another walk-on former quarterback from St. Paul's, Jack Mashburn, who I think could be a really good player. He just, again, needs to gain a little bit of weight. I think tight end's super strong. And then you got Cole Taylor from Colorado coming in at 6'7", 235. He'll probably be 245 for fall. Runs a 4.6. Tight end's deeper than last year.
Yeah. I mean, despite the loss of Thaddeus Moss, I mean, LSU is looking as hot as ever at that position. And you can look back at the last couple of years of Les Miles that didn't even use the tight end. It's becoming a different story now in the last 2 years. Let's
go to offensive line. This is where I think it's going to shock people. I wasn't a big fan going into this past fall, for LSU. I thought the O-line lacked some dominant players, but let me tell you something. I was wrong. A lot of these guys became great players, like Cushenberry, Damian Lewis. Dackless was super improved.
I mean, he had to be like the most improved player last year.
Ed Ingram looked great sitting out 2 years. Ed Ingram's coming back as the leader of this offensive line. They did lose Sadiq Charles to the pros early. And if you look at the paperwork, you're like, oh, LSU lost the whole offensive line. I'm telling you, the young guys that redshirted, Cordell Thomas, Anthony Bradford from Michigan, Chasen Hines, who's finally healthy from Texas.
And he's had experience playing.
Dare Rosenthal will be back for the summer, 6'7", 330, 6'8" from Faraday. And then you got some great players coming in. Domerville from Florida could come in and play guard, tackle. You've got a ton of young guys coming up. I even like Cameron Wire. I think he's going to be a good player this year. He's been waiting his turn from East Ascension High School. He's 6'6", 6'7", about 320. I think the offensive line is more talented. They just have to come together as a group, and they just have to show it. But Bradford's got a chance to be an NFL guy, and Cordell Thomas.
James Craig, I mean, he deserves a lot of credit for what that unit did last year, just putting this unit together. And, of course, when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, he makes your offensive line look good sometimes. Yeah. He extended a lot of plays. But, yeah, there's a lot of talent on this offensive line. It's just about making sure they stay healthy, not losing any guys through the injury.
Well, it's every year. You go in with 12 or 13, and that's all you're going to always really have that can play. Thomas Perry's another one who sat out last year with an injury from Turlings. He could be a guard or tackle. I think Charles Turner could be a center or guard or tackle. He redshirted, put on a lot of weight from Ohio, from IMG Academy. Charles Turner went from 240, Jace, to about 285 in about a year. All muscle. And he'll probably be 300 for fall. Joseph Evans went to D-line. We'll talk about that on defense. He went to O-line.
Yeah, they moved him to center.
I don't know if that's permanent or not, because if Chasen Hines ends up being what they think he can be, and Charles Turner ends up being what they think he can be, then he can go back to D-line. But I just think they're making sure they find their starter. Joseph Evans runs a 4.840 at 305, 6'2", from Haynesville, Louisiana. I think Evans is an NFL guy on either side of the ball, especially he'd make a great center. But I think Ed's intrigued with his footwork, his hands. But, again, if Chasen Hines stays healthy, reaches potential, Charles Turner, you really don't need him there because the freshman Martinez from St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida will come in and be your third-team center. And they're talking about Martinez being ready, to go. 6'4", 290. St. Thomas Aquinas won the high school national championship.
Yeah, they're a powerhouse.
That's where Michael Irvin went.
Right.
We could go on and on, 500 D1 players over the years. Dermerville, who's coming in as a tackle guard, was a teammate with Martinez. I think Martinez is the sleeper of the class because if Hines is not ready, Turner might go to guard. It might be a freshman. This guy is super mature. They said he's strong. I watched him play. He's actually good technique, and he might come in and be, centers can come in early if they're ready mentally and they're big enough.
That's the key word, though, Lee, because at the center position, you got to be the quarterback of the offensive line, and you got to make sure to keep everybody in the right spot. It's more mentally than physically, and that's just the biggest part to see which guy can do that. And
the sleeper coming in is Xavier Hill from Olive Branch, Mississippi. Xavier was originally committed to Alabama. He's a twin. He looks like a Damian Lewis. He's got that kind of body, but Xavier Hill's from Mississippi, like Damian Lewis. Xavier Hill could be a center, possibly, coming into the fall. He's going to be a true freshman from Olive Branch, Mississippi. Xavier's 6'3", 315, and ran a 4.89 for Nick Saban. And on film, he looks phenomenal pulling. He looks like a linebacker with his feet. So I think if they do have an injury or two, they might not want to use this kid, but he's ready to roll if needed. And you got Dacquelis back at tackle. And I think Dare Rosenthal, you got Cameron Wire at tackle. And you know, you got this kid Dummerville. So you got 4 tackles, you got 5 guards, you got 3 centers. That's basically what you're going to have every year. And that's actually more depth going into the fall than last year. So the offense, I think, has got a chance to be better. They have to win week 2 against Texas at home. But I think they're going to beat Texas at home. I was more worried about Texas and Austin. You know, I think the defense for LSU, we're going to get to that in a minute. But let's go ahead and go with the kicking game. We got a great kicker. LSU's got a great kicker coming back.
Yep, Cade York.
Cade is from Prosper, Texas, around the Dallas area. And when you miss 5 field goals in a year, you take a beating. Even if you're 25 or 30, they don't like 80%, you know.
And especially the guy that he had to replace. We're talking about Miles Brown replacing Joe Burrow. He had to replace Cole Tracy. He was probably the best year ever for an LSU kicker.
Yeah, I think York's going to be good. I think he did phenomenal for a true freshman. I wouldn't want to kick field goals in Tiger Stadium as an 18-year-old.
If you think about it, if you look back at that Texas game, he made some key field goals and really the Alabama game.
Cade York's going to be potentially all SEC this year. Offense, we stick with offense. Long snapper, finally a new one, not named Ferguson.
Yep, but he's from the same high school, so that high school tradition carries on.
Skinner's a young kid. He's a redshirt freshman from Georgia, Atlanta, the same high school. I don't know. I'm not a deep snapper guru, but, you know, he was the number 1 deep snapper in the country when they signed him.
The Ferguson brothers are really high on him. So,
yeah, so
I mean, you got to take their word for it.
If not, they brought in a guy from Massachusetts who's a redshirt freshman, and they have a kid from West Monroe coming in named Daniel Hawthorne. Daniel's a great player. He was an offensive guard, center for West Monroe, 6'1", about 245. Turned down some scholarships to come to LSU. And so, hey, again, they're going to have 3 deep snappers. If something happens and Skinner struggles, Quentin Skinner, then they got 2 other guys that can pick up the slack. The offense, it all revolves around Brennan just getting the ball to the playmakers. And let's go to running back. I'm really happy that Chris Curry stepped up in the Oklahoma game. I was really worried for LSU fans that he might leave come the end of the season if he doesn't get in that game, because that game gave him confidence that he's a part of the team. And he was a 2-year guy, and it's even harder when you're a 2-year guy, especially running back, and you're not playing much.
And especially the guys that are in there already. They signed 2 highly recruited guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the way Quad's been playing. But
Chris Curry found confidence, and it just shows you what confidence will do to a young kid. It gave him confidence to go out and not play tight. And against Oklahoma, he powered through and had some great muscle runs. And I think he's going to be phenomenal. But you got John Emery that's really learning the offense now. I think he's going to be ready. John, it's not a talent issue with John. It's just John didn't know the offense as fast as Davis did. Ty Davis just picked up on the plays and the system a little quicker. So John Emery's his own kind of player. He's a fast guy, 210 pounds. You get John Emery outside, you see what he can do. I mean, he's a 10-7, 10-800 meter guy if he's outside at 210. And then, you know, Ty is this power runner that's got this deceptive burst where he can go 40 yards and outrun all these safeties. And I don't even think you've seen the best of either one of those guys. I think you're going to see confident Ty Davis this year, confident John Emery, confident Curry, and throw in Trey Bradford, who they signed out of Lancaster, Texas. He looks like an Emery, but a little bigger. I think LSU set at running back. And, you know, it's always scary to have 4 guys, but nobody has more than 4 or 5 running backs on a roster.
No, not even the Alabamas in the world and those guys. But they have the good thing is LSU's got at least 3 guys that they can really say, hey, they proved it in the game, and we can really rely on them.
So this LSU offense, in a nutshell, in my opinion, will be up there even with Florida. Even though Trask comes back, if you look at Florida, they lost 4 receivers to the NFL. Or by the when the draft's over, they could have 4 drafted. They've lost 3 of their starting offensive linemen. They lost their starting running back. Florida's being ranked on their defense coming back and their quarterback coming back. I think LSU's got a better offense coming back than the team they're going to predict to win it all, which is Florida.
I mean, you look at the whole SEC. I mean, there's question marks really everywhere. You look at every team in the SEC, there's question marks everywhere.
Well, look at it this way. Georgia's losing 3 juniors on the O-line and 2 seniors. And they had Cade Mays leave to Tennessee, who started on the O-line. They lost their whole offensive line. So, and people are like, oh, it's okay. Georgia's recruiting well, but okay, you got 5 coming up that are great, but who's behind those 5? Nobody.
Right.
Georgia's got some problems. And they got a quarterback coming from Wake Forest who's yet to take a snap. And, I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's had playing experience at Wake Forest and did pretty good there. But the question is, can he do that in the SEC? So if you look at all the other teams in the SEC, we've been talking about Miles Brennan, but really, besides Trask, I mean, what quarterback can say that they've had a lot of that experience?
Well, and the most talented teams in the SEC are Florida, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, and Auburn, right? And then there's everybody else. And so we're talking about these teams having weaknesses. So LSU loses 19 players. Well, Florida's losing about 19. Georgia's lost about 12, 13 starters and a bunch of underclassmen. They lost their great running back, Swift. They lost 4 or 5 of their front 7 on defense and 2 of their DBs.
Yeah.
Alabama lost 5 juniors and a senior class of about 16 or 17. Florida lost a lot. You know, the team that scares me, and we're going to get back to LSU and talk about the defense, but, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin could make a splash quick, especially with those young offensive players that you saw against LSU. The quarterback.
Plumlee, yeah.
And their 2 running backs. Ely, the running back Ely is going to be a future pro. His backup's going to be a pro. And they got 3 young receivers that weren't even recruited that are phenomenal. So beware of Mr. Lane Kiffin with that spread offense. He knows how to run that offense, and it's going to be really tough on Saban and Ed and Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
So Tennessee's a team I think should be improved, but they need their quarterback to step up. They just can't find that quarterback since T. Martin. I mean, they just can't. Casey Clausen was good.
Yeah, he was.
But after that, it was just a drop-off. You know, nobody can win championships if you can't have a good quarterback. Okay, let's go to defense for LSU. There's many ways to talk about a D-line. You have D-ends, the Buck D-ends. LSU's going to a 4-3 now instead of a 3-4. So you got 2 D-ends and you got 2 D tackles. You know, 1 D tackle's a nose guard. You need the big nose guard. LSU's got that. So we're going to talk about nose guards, D tackles, Buck linebackers, and then D-ends. It's 4 pieces of the gaps.
Right.
And most people say just D-line. Well, D-line's a little bit different. But as far as the D-ends, Chasson, he's the guy you got to replace. He was the Buck linebacker in the 3-4.
Yeah, he was your pass rushing specialist. He was going to be the guy to get to the quarterback. So that's a big loss.
Chasson was good in the run game, too. I thought he was a better run guy than he was a pass.
Yeah, I thought so, too.
And in NFL, he might not – I don't think he's going to be Donnell Hunter. Donnell's like 6'6", 280 with a 4.5. That's a different kind of guy. Chasson might end up being a linebacker in the NFL at 250, 6'3", 4.55. He might be an All-American, you know, going in the NFL and be an All-Pro linebacker because he's really a tweener, and he'll rush and blitz, you know. But LSU actually has a chance to have bigger players at DN, not maybe as fast as Chasson. I think Andre Anthony fits the 4-3 now. He's 6'5 now, 260. He was about 240. I think you're going to see a great Andre Anthony from Edna Carr. He only played his senior year of football. And I remember talking to Andre at Edna Carr in the office, And I'm like, kid, you look the part. And he's like, I don't know the game yet. Mm-hmm. So he comes to LSU. He got hurt, remember, his first year. He didn't really come back fully the second year. Last year, he learned from Chasson, had some injuries. Mm-hmm. Now he's stronger, bigger, wiser, faster, and he's 260, might be 270 come fall. And another guy to keep to not forget about is Trevez Moore.
Yep.
Trevez Moore from Faraday had to sit out a lot last year to tend to family problems, and everything got straightened out. He came in as an All-American junior college DN.
Yep.
Now he's got his body weight. He had to change his body. Now Trevez is 6'4", 6'5", about 260 now. He came in around 240. He's ready to go. He fits the 4-3 better too. And then you got all these young guys like the B.J. Obalata from Georgia, from Atlanta. B.J.'s going to be 6'3", coming in about 230.
Right, and his brother was a pretty
starter,
good one. Yeah, starter
for
Georgia. Yep.
B.J. has got a chance to be an All-American. He's that Chasson type build, 4.5 40 guy. You got Jarrell Cherry that's coming back at defensive end from Dallas Carter. He's a redshirt sophomore. They wrote about him how he was like going to school, would carry actually concrete.
Yeah.
To get strong with his book sack. I mean, who does that?
I don't know, but
40-pound weights he would carry with his book sack in the mornings going to school.
Just the way Clyde would walk to class at Catholic High, I think he was carrying some bricks in his book sack, it seemed like.
Yeah. And Jarrell Cherry's about 275.
Yeah.
They said he's benching almost 500 pounds. 6'3". I like that. I mean, we're going to see what he does. He ran the relays in high school at 225 and ran a 10,900 meters. So he's got that athletic background. So when you look at Cherry, you look at Trevez Moore and Anthony and this kid BJ, you got a rotation of 4 kids. And you got 3 guys that have 4 years in college. I love that experience. Rashard Lawrence was more the DN in the old 3-4, which is the 300-pounder. But let's go to nose guard. You got 3 All-American nose guards. You've got Tyler Shelvin, who I think is going to have a phenomenal year. I hope Tyler comes in at his perfect weight. He's been trying to get 325.
Seems like he's been slimming down a little bit.
Yeah, I think got down to about 340 from 400.
Well, yeah, he was getting pushing 400.
But Tyler is a guy that the sacks don't show what he dominates in a game. You can't move him, and he just causes just.
Yeah, he takes on 2 blockers, so yeah, I mean, it will leave a lot of room for the Patrick Queens of the world to come and wrap up and make plays. And
then you got Sika, who's coming in, who's Utah, played as a true for Ika.
Yep.
Played as a freshman from Salt Lake City, Utah East. 350. They're going to try and get him down to about 330. He was hurt last year and played hurt, and you could tell at times he's going to be phenomenal. The third nose guard is Jacobian Guillory. I think Jacobian Guillory is the best third nose guard in the country. This is when you know LSU's changing on depth. Last year, the last 15, 20 years, Jacobian Guillory would sign with LSU coming in and start. This is an Alabama depth chart for nose guards. When you have 3 330-pound nose guards that are athletic, that are going to play in the NFL, 3 to rotate, you have a chance to have a special team. And you need 3.
Yeah, I mean, give credit to Ed Orgeron, because when he got there, they barely had 1 because Christian Alcantara had to pretty much play a whole game. So now you have 3 guys to rotate like that can dominate a game. That says a lot through the progress that the defensive nose guards have shown.
And you also have an improved Nelson Jenkins from Plaquemine, who has come around. Nelson's changed his body. He's slimmed down. He's 6'4" now, about 285 from 300. He's running a 4.9. He looked great in high school. Your dad coached on the team with Nelson Jenkins.
He sure did.
He's going to be a redshirt sophomore, and he's going to be a third-team guy that comes in and looks like an All-American. This kid's going to have a potentially a chance to play a lot of minutes this year. And then you go back to DN, you got Sony Fanua from Utah, from junior college.
Yep.
Who's going to be a senior, played special teams last year as a first-year guy. Sony's 6'3", about 265, runs a 4.7. That's 5 guys to rotate at DN, okay? And then you got Ollie Gay, who's coming in as a junior college DN at 6'7", 270. When's the last time LSU had 6 players to rotate at DN?
It's been a while, probably since that 2011 squad. If you look back at it, this probably has most stuff since that team.
You also got Desmond Little, who redshirted from Mobile. Desmond was all-state in track, running to, guess what, the 100 meters. Desmond, 6'6", should show up at 235, 240. He was 210 last year. He's another DN.
Yep.
This is Florida D-line depth, Alabama depth.
And I like how you said that all these guys were track guys, and this just shows you the athleticism of these guys. And it's just all about the green light being turned for those guys.
And I think Orgeron probably loves that he's not even mentioning Desmond Little. He wants to keep this guy quiet, make him earn his trust. But when you can take a guy that's 6'6", 240, might be 250 come fall, runs a 4.6, and he's not even in your first 3 units,
that's a good problem to have.
Finally. Now, you got one more guy. So there's an 8-man rotation at DN, TJ McClendon. TJ was signed as a tight end. And I didn't know this, Jace, but Collis Temple, senior, told me that he knew TJ McClendon's dad.
Yeah,
that they have Grambling ties. And that when TJ was playing in Georgia, Collis was able to tell LSU, look out for this guy that's in junior college in Mississippi. He's a great, great gifted athlete. And TJ was 6'5", about 245, 250 in junior college and ran a 4.6. LSU signs him last year. He redshirts. And Orgeron moves him to defensive end in fall camp to learn defensive end.
Yeah, because he started off as a tight end, correct?
Yeah, tight end.
Okay.
Now he's 265, runs a 4.6, 6'5", and ready to just be great. You have 8 kids to rotate at DN. This is what Ohio State has every year. You know, they have an 8-man rotation at DN and D tackle, and you just can't wear them down. And that's why they beat the Wisconsins every year. That's why they toy with the Michigan States. The Michigans cannot. That's why Michigan can't beat Ohio State. They just got too much talent in the trenches.
That seemed like that was LSU's problem for before they broke out and finally beat Nick Saban. Alabama was in the trenches the last couple of years when they were on that 8-game losing streak.
So let's talk about D-tackle. I can't even believe we didn't even get to D-tackle yet. We talked about nose guards. We talked about DNs and the Buck linebacker DNs, right? Well, you got Glenn Logan back, who's a senior.
Yep.
Who could be a nose guard if you need him to give some reps there.
And he's shown, well, back when they ran the 3-4, that he did play in. So he's got some experience there as well.
6'4", 310. You got Justin Thomas, who was doing great before he was suspended last year. Now he's back from Alabama. He's 6'5", about 280. He could play some DN. I mean, the D tackle, you got Eric Taylor coming in from Alabama, 6'4", 300, that could play nose guard or D tackle. I mean, and you got the big guy that the biggest recruit in the country at D line, Jaquan Roy from
nearby. Yep.
I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", about 280, can play DN. D tackle. This is the dream D line. I think somewhere every day Ed Orgeron has to be just sitting down going, I finally got
his chops.
I finally got the D line that I wanted. I finally have the rotation that I wanted. I finally have the talent that I wanted. And he won a national championship with half of this depth last year. This is scary. This is why I like this team so much. And then you have Phillip Webb that's going to come in, I think, as a linebacker because they don't even need him to be a DN.
Right, and you're and also, like you said earlier about moving back to the offensive line, you had Joseph Evans,
who could go back to D line.
If there is emergency, you can. And Chase and Hines played some defensive line, so an emergency there, you can move him back to defensive.
And we've got one more guy, Neil Farrell, who's got 3 years as a letterman. I think he's an NFL player. He's from Mobile, Alabama. He's 6'4", about 315. Runs about a 5 flat. You got Neil Farrell.
He's a veteran of the group, along with Glenn Logan. I mean, they've been very experienced, and they can be the leaders of this group. So it's great to have those two guys.
So this is what Nick Saban's probably thinking right now, Jace. He's probably saying, okay, by the time LSU faces us, they're going to have at least 12 healthy linemen instead of 5. I can't just run the running back straight at LSU and get 500 yards.
Yep, and it's also good as a different offense as well. So.
Yeah, so I mean,
no more toss dives.
There are very few programs come week 6 that have 2 deep on D-line because they've already had some injuries and they're 2 deep. Now they're 1 deep, and LSU's always gotten really worn down by Alabama and Florida. And now LSU could say, okay, in these first few games, we're going to rotate 18 kids. And by the time it's week 6, we got 18 kids with experience. And we can strategize. Then they can blitz some linebackers. They can put all these DNs in the game together. Pelini does that too. Pelini does a little bit of what Aranda did. You might see 5 DNs come in and no D tackles. 5 phenomenal DNs.
Right. Goal
line, you might see 6 D tackles come in or 5, no DNs. It gives you a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah, well, when you have these athletes too, a lot of these guys like to disguise one thing and show another. And then when you have these type of athletes to do it with, that just makes that combination even more dangerous.
All right, so we're going to go to linebacker. Patrick Queen was a huge loss. Jacob Phillips was a huge loss. Those 2 guys had over 200 tackles combined. Jacob didn't get the notoriety that
right.
Queen got. Queen was a former running back from Livonia that became a linebacker, and Aranda made him in the lab, right? He taught him how to play linebacker.
Just like Devin White.
Just like Devin White from running back at North Webster. And so, the talent is there to have more depth. Now, I know they don't have the depth in spring.
As of now.
Right. But come fall, LSU will be 2 deep at linebacker, and you could always move Jacoby Stevens back to linebacker in certain plays because he's really a hybrid linebacker.
Yeah.
So Jacoby on any given down could come in and play outside backer, blitz. He's 6'1", about 225, 230. He's built like Queen.
He's built like a linebacker.
He's not going to play safety in the NFL. He's going to be a linebacker. Mm-hmm. And you have, I think, a Micah Bakersfield who's been waiting his turn from Evangel Christian. Micah showed blocking the punt against Vanderbilt and then scoring a touchdown. He's got some potential, and he can run.
And he actually played a lot in that Florida game last year. So it's just about him getting it all together. But as far as talent goes, yeah, he's definitely got the tools to be a next great one at LSU.
I went on radio last year and some shows, Jace, in North Louisiana, and they thought I was crazy because last year they said, what do you think of Devontae Lee? And I saw Devontae Lee play at A-Meet. And I'm always thinking ahead. I thought Devontae Lee was a linebacker.
Yeah, me too.
And he's found his home. I think he's going to be a first-round pick linebacker. I think Devontae Lee is going to be one of them 10-sack, 12 sacks a year, 100 tackles, maybe 3-4 interceptions because he has great hands. He's instinctive. Devontae Lee is going to make people forget about Patrick Queen. That's just my opinion. And I think after spring is over, when the freshmen come in like Phillip Webb and Josh White from Texas, he looks like Devin White.
Mm-hmm.
When those guys get their reps, and BJ from Georgia might end up going back to linebacker, all of a sudden they're super deep. And then I think the freshman from Texas goes back to free safety, our kid that's been moved to linebacker for spring because they don't have bodies.
Oh, right. Marcel Brooks, moved to linebacker.
I think Marcel will go back to free safety in the fall because they just lack in bodies. And I think Eric Monroe, we'll talk about that in a minute. He's finally healthy for safety. But when you look at the linebackers, because of the depth at DN, they could take BJ Oluiga and they can take Phillip Webb and make them true linebackers, and all of a sudden you have 9 linebackers.
And then also you said now this is As of now, it hasn't happened. But you got the wild card earlier, what you said about the transfer, if he does transfer to LSU from North Dakota State. So we'll keep an eye on that.
So this is what I'm playing.
That'll be huge.
So you're catching on, Jace.
Mm-hmm.
If they get the North Dakota State All-American future first-round pick linebacker, Jabbar Lee, I think Jabarrel, his first name is Jabarrel.
I can look it up.
If they get him, then Marcel Brooks that's why I'm saying Marcel goes to free safety.
Right. I get it.
And becomes a better, more athletic version of Grant Delpit. Probably a little more speed than Grant. Has a chance to be another All-American safety for LSU. And then strong safety, you'll have, Todd Harris. You've got Eric Monroe that's been really trying to get back from injuries for 2 years.
And just to say, it was Jabril Cox.
Jabril Cox. So if Jabril Cox signs with LSU, he'll start, be in that 4 rotation, and then you can go ahead and, like I said, put Marcel Brooks back at free safety. And don't forget about the freshman, Antone Sampois from Virginia, who's a phenomenal player. And Antoine will probably play special teams at least. He's 6'2", about 220. And I'm kind of interested to see how big he's going to get come fall because he runs 4.5 in the 40. He was the number 1 player in Virginia on the defensive side of the ball coming out of high school. I don't remember LSU ever beating Penn State out for a linebacker on the Atlantic coast. Do you?
No, especially with Penn State's tradition of great linebackers, LeVar Arrington and those guys. It's tough to get those that part of the country.
Going to corner, Elias Ricks, if he reaches half of his stardom or half of his recruiting celebrityism, Elias Ricks will be a first-round pick. He's 6'2", about 190. He's long. It's like he's 6'5". I think he'll be opposite by the time midseason starts, opposite Derek Stingley, who I don't think we need to say anything more. He's going to be a first-round pick, probably one of the top 5 picks of any draft. Probably would have went top 10 picks this year.
He would have been first round this year. If he went out this year, it would have been first round.
But let's not sleep on Kerry Vincent, who's one of the best nickel backs in the country. He came back. I think I was proud of Kerry Vincent to come back. Kerry's actually very improved to me. I think the Ole Miss game, he stepped up and had that big interception late, which really sealed the deal for LSU in a couple of games.
And that Oklahoma play, huge interception. That was an amazing play. So we know the speed he has. So there's a potential there.
And like I said, you get Todd Harris back at safety. He's more suited for strong safety or nickel. We can't forget about what our freshman did from Alabama at corner. Corner Cordell Flott is, to me, another future first-round pick.
Yeah, he played in
number 25.
Yeah, some important minutes last year.
Cordell's going to be phenomenal, and he was like 160, 6'2". I think this year they project him about 185. That's scary considering at 160 he held his own against Alabama and had some great plays, and in Atlanta and the whole year really, even Oklahoma game.
And he played some important minutes too in the Texas game where, like, early on in the season, Arena was trying to figure out this secondary because they were young last year and not really deep. So he did play very crucial part.
Another corner that's going to be good for LSU, big for LSU, is Jay Ward from Atlanta. Jay played a lot. He missed the first 5 games because he was hurt in fall camp. Jay's 6'2", about 180. He's going to be a great player for LSU. And the one that I'm excited about at corner, he might end up being a safety in the fall, depends on how much he grows, is Rodarius Jones from Mississippi, who was the Mississippi Player of the Year in 3A ball as a quarterback. But he's out of Horn Lake, Mississippi. LSU beat Ole Miss and Mississippi State out for him. He redshirted last year. But he redshirted because he just needed to gain some weight, learn how to play corner. This kid's 6'2", and he's long, about 180. He's going to be another. I mean, there's so much depth compared to last year. LSU didn't have a lot of depth at corner.
They did not. Yeah, they did not.
Safety, Cameron Lewis. We can't forget about Cameron Lewis from Wassman High School. I mean, here's a guy that nobody thought would play much because he didn't play his first 3 years. He's going to be a fifth-year senior if he comes back, right?
Right.
I don't know if he graduates in the spring. Will he leave? But Cameron,
I was about to say, it's probably like the fourth or fifth time I've heard his name go through spring.
Well, I hope Cameron Lewis comes back because they need safety depth. And he's 6'2", about 210, and this is his year to really – he had some good games, I thought. Finally played a lot last year. But I'm going to tell you, there's a free safety on the team going through spring that's just killing it. And his film and in person, he's backing it up. Jordan Tolles. You know, you kind of sometimes wonder if a kid's from Maryland, if it's going to be the same competition here with the kids in the South, and if he was overrated. But let me tell you, everything I'm hearing out of camp, he's a freak athlete. 6'2", 210, runs a 4.45, and he will knock your head off. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy is the real deal. He was the best safety in Maryland on the number one program in Maryland. And they got him, and he's going to maybe walk on for basketball. But I think once he starts playing football, he probably won't do basketball. But Jordan Tolles is going to be that next safety All-SEC guy from LSU. And I'm excited because they need him. They need a safety to step up. But I think Marcel Brooks and Jordan Tolles are going to make great safeties to go with Cameron Lewis, Todd Harris, and Eric Monroe. I think that's enough safety depth. Mm-hmm. And then you can throw in the receiver from Mississippi that LSU signed late.
Right, Alex Atkins.
Who they're going to move to safety. Yeah. And he's 6'2", about 190. So don't worry about safety depth at LSU. They're good. They're good to go there. Kickoffs. Avery Atkins is phenomenal.
There's no question mark about that one. He definitely kicks in the end zone every single time.
You know, if I'm him, I'm happy. I'm not upset. I'm not the kicker. I mean, all you got to do is go out and just kick off, 7 times in the end zone?
I don't think I've ever seen him kick a ball where, it's in play. It seems
unbelievable. He's been a weapon since he got on campus, got a scholarship. He's from Auburn, Alabama. The good thing is if Cade York got hurt, then Avery Atkins has a 60-yard leg. Good. And also he's the backup punter. So we're going to talk about punter. Zachary Von Rossenberg is the first 30-year-old punter at LSU.
Yeah, forget LSU. It might be one of the first ones ever anywhere across the country.
He's good. I didn't think he had a great year last year, though. He didn't have to punt much.
I was about to say he didn't really have to punt that much, so he didn't see the field a lot.
He owes Joe Burrow a couple of hamburgers, but they're going to need Von Rossenberg more this year. But he does have a cannon, and he does have a pro career. And I don't know how pros look at him because he's already 30, but at least he's matured and come in and play. So I'm glad he's back because he is one of the top punters in the SEC. You know, it's a team that's got a lot of talent, and I think that has more depth on defense. Once people see that safety's going to be okay with Tolles, Marcel Brooks, when they see that quarterback's going to be okay, I think the fan base is going to be energized. I'm going to tell you what, try to get a ticket to an LSU game this year. Last year, maybe it was tough after the first 6 games or 5 games. But look for sellouts in the first 2 or 3 games, and that's where LSU wasn't selling out in the past.
Right, coming off the national championship, I mean, a lot of the city of Baton Rouge is pretty buzzing right now, riding off of last year's success. And it's going to be pretty interesting to see how this offense goes, and especially with the new coaches, assistant coaches this year. So not only would we lose at LSU, we lose about 19 players just to the combine, 16, I believe, at the combine. But they've lost a couple of key assistant coaches as well. So it's going to be a brand new team in 2020.
And I don't want to not mention this guy, but at linebacker, Damon Clark, right? So Damon is going to be a pro. I love Damon from Southern Lab. So when you throw in Damon Clark, Micah Bakersfield, Antone Sampath, maybe getting a graduate transfer from North Dakota State.
And also Dante Starks.
Starks, who we'll see when he comes back. Right. But if all this falls in line and everything's okay, then they're deep at linebacker after fall. Just realize it's spring.
Spring.
You lose all these guys and you don't have the whole class in.
Just think about 2 years ago. At the spring this time, there were 4 quarterbacks battling for a spot, and Joe Burrow wasn't even on campus yet. And then you also have Cole Tracy. Those guys didn't come until after the spring.
And you also, there's one more DB, but I think he's going to redshirt and move to safety. It's Dwight McCloverin out of Texas.
Yeah.
He was a late signee, 6'2", about 185. He'll be 210 when he's done, but Dwight had 2 interceptions in the Army game. And almost had 3.
Yeah,
almost had
did.
3. Had a touchdown on an interception.
And then he committed that game. That's when he committed to LSU.
Yeah. It's good to redshirt a guy that was one of the top players in the All-Star game. And Dwight, is from Houston, Texas, and they don't even need him to come in and play, but you've got about 6 safeties there when all this is said and done. And there's going to be some people move around a little bit, but I'm excited for LSU, Jace. I really think that if Brennan can just get the ball to the playmakers within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, the running backs are experienced. The O-line's going to be good again. The receivers are phenomenal. The tight ends are going to be really good. This could be a phenomenal team again in the end.
So Miles Brennan's got the Ferrari. He's got the keys to Ferrari. We'll see what he does with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's his team, and I'm a big fan of a guy like him. I'm a fan of a kid that's been waiting 3 years, and he could have left. He could have transferred to maybe, I don't know, just some D1 schools that you could play right away. He couldn't. He had to sit out, right? He wasn't a graduate transfer, but he did show that he loved the school by not leaving right away. And look, quarterbacks today, they leave within a year.
Right. The transfer portal, it seems like it's a little out of control, but, a lot of respect to Miles for sticking the course and bound through the tough times, and now it's his chance. He's waiting for it.
And here's another thing. Bo Pelini, to me, was the greatest hire LSU could have hired for defense. He's been at LSU. He won a national championship at LSU against Ohio State. He is an architect that knows Baton Rouge. He knows the SEC. I think Pelini's a phenomenal D coordinator. Now, people say, well, head coach. Well, he won. He had a good percentage record at Nebraska.
I think Nebraska would take what Bo Pelini was doing when he was the coach there.
And then he was at Youngstown State, a great 1AA program that he did well there. Pelini's perfect, and he's a rah-rah guy. You could probably see
he's your typical defensive coordinator.
Yeah, well, him and Ed are probably going to sit there and high-five each other.
Oh, that's going to be interesting to watch.
Who can scream the most? But these guys, they're the same, right? They're the same. And then I love all these hires by LSU. I love all these ex-players. Eddie Kennison, one of my favorite receivers of all time. They're bringing in Benny Logan.
Benny Logan as an analyst.
Man, from Red River High School around Shreveport. They're bringing in Kelvin Shepard,
right, director of player personnel
from Georgia, was a linebacker for LSU, and they brought up Kevin Falk to running backs coach, former Tiger, and then Corey Raymond, former LSU DB, now the recruiting coordinator. I love all the decisions they made, and everybody was like, "Why are we losing all these analysts?" Well, to me, they're replacing them with all Louisiana guys, which is going to really help Louisiana.
And Mickey Joseph got promoted as well.
Yeah, and look, these guys. They're known not just in Louisiana. Corey Raymond played for the Giants. Mm-hmm. Kelvin Shepard played for the Giants, the Dolphins. He played for about 5 or 6 teams. Benny Logan was with the Chiefs.
The
Eagles, the Titans. Eddie Kennison spent many years in Kansas City. They have ties to all these states for recruiting.
And I love how LSU, Coach Orgeron was bringing all these former great Tigers and keeping them involved with the program. That's just great to see, and great for recruiting, great for everything.
And Linehan knows a lot of people in Dallas, and LSU recruits Dallas. And he knows a lot of people in L.A. He was the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. And when you can bring a guy in who's just your quarterback coach, and he was the head coach of the Rams.
He was the head coach of the Rams, has all this NFL experience. I know they've lost Joe Brady and Aranda, but they've got some pretty big names to fill in those shoes.
Yeah, and look, I applaud the Blaine Gauchers and all these guys that did leave to up, their money and to succeed and continue to keep going up in the rankings. As a coach, it's move up, and that's what they do. You move and you get more money and you keep going to bigger schools.
Okay, Lee, to end it up this conversation, what are the main things that you're looking for after spring? At the conclusion of spring, what are the things that you're looking for the most on this team?
Let me just say I'm assuming here, just from a football standpoint, because I've seen how this works. They're not always – the coaches from LSU are not always going to tell you what they're going to do a month from now. Sometimes they don't even know. So I think they're going to try and answer their questions in the spring. If those questions aren't answered, then that's where those graduate transfers are going to come into play. So if Chasen Hines, Charles Turner, and Joseph Evans, if somebody doesn't dominate and become center, then they're going to go get a center. All right? But they don't know that yet, I don't think. Mm-hmm. If the quarterback position is Miles Brennan's and no one else's, I still think they got to go get an older quarterback in case he gets hurt. Not to challenge him, just in case he gets hurt.
Just established depth.
Insurance, right?
Right.
And the third scholarship, they're going to try and get the best linebacker on the market. They do know that. And I think Jabril is a heck of a player from North Dakota State.
He'll be a great fit if they end up getting him.
He reminds me of Jacob Phillips in build and the way he plays.
Yeah.
So I think if LSU can find their center in spring, then they won't use that scholarship. They'll just let it roll over. If they find – that they don't even need maybe a quarterback. Maybe Peter Parrish stays.
Or one of the freshmen emerges.
Moves up. Yeah. Then they won't even use that scholarship. They'll let that roll over. Then they'll have 27 scholarships for the next class, which, hey, it's a deep recruiting class, especially Texas. And so I think a lot will be answered. I think they're going to be worried about who's going to replace Van Rossenberg after this year. So maybe give that job to Avery Atkins. I heard he's a great punter.
Yeah,
they might let Avery punt more in the spring game. And then on the other team, who do you make the starting quarterback on the opposite team of Brennan?
Yeah, who is going to be that number 2 guy? And that's
to get the reps.
Yeah, to get the reps. Because we heard Coach O say that Miles, he's got all the first team reps, so there's a limited amount of reps that you have. So who's going to take advantage of those limited amount of reps?
And the final thing is, who's going to be my safeties? And who do I want to be my safeties? And I think they're going to learn that when spring's over, meaning I think they know Marcel will go back to safety because they just don't have bodies at linebacker right now. But what if Marcel just kills it at linebacker? Then you go with Jordan Tolles. Do you feel like he's capable of starting at free safety? That is a big position in SEC. Jordan Tolles looks the part. Or do you move some of these other DBs to safety? And are you very happy with Monroe? Is he finally ready to be a good safety? Is Todd Harris going to be a strong safety? So I think that's what they're looking at, and that's what I'm looking at for spring. I'm not looking at, Eric Gilbert sitting out right. He's nursing his surgery. I think Hicks is going to Elias Ricks is going to kind of take it easy a little bit.
It's like a limited practice role.
Yeah, at least working out. Time. I'm not that fan that says I want to see 5 touchdown passes in the spring game to impress me. I'm not that fan.
Spring's all about position battles and establishing your spot. And that's what spring is about. And you talked about the amount of depth. There's a lot of depth on this team, but experience what guys are going to step up because you have to lose all those guys in the NFL and to graduation. So
and the other thing, they're going to look at number 8, the kid BJ Olarah from Atlanta. Can he play DN? Will he be a pass rusher, or do they move him to outside backer for depth at linebacker and rotate him in and out? It's a good problem to have. And who steps up at DN? Does Andre Anthony really be that guy? It's his year to do it. Is Trevez Moore really going to step up? There's a lot of older guys. Nelson Jenkins, 3rd year. I mean, and what do? Do you take one of these nose guards? Do you get really cute and put one at DN in some formations?
Right. When does the green light come on for a lot of these guys? It's now or never for a lot of those guys, like you mentioned.
If I'm Pelini, I'm like a kid in a candy store right now about how I'm going to use personnel, because when you have a lot of it, you can create so many disguises and so many great formations. I mean, can you imagine Ika, Shelvin, Ali Gay, Roy, all being in the game at the same time? And then having 3 rush linebackers, maybe like, with having just Marcel Brooks and having Tolles and Jacoby Stevens on the field, just blitzing outside on the edge. I mean, it's a lot of speed again and a lot of talent, a lot of size on D-line. In goal line situations, LSU's going to have all the bodies now. Yeah. I mean, if it's on the 1-yard line, this is the year to love LSU. It's like, okay, you think you're getting in? I mean, put all the nose guards in, put all the guys on D-line. You got Neil Farrell and Logan that are really kind of like backups now, but they play as much as starters.
Right, and they're the most experienced. And yeah, I mean, the offense is going to take a little bit of a drop, but it's just natural. Nobody's going to be replacing what happened last year. But the defense, they're going to be better this year than last year. If they can just play to that level, that'll kind of even everything out.
And the O-line, like I said, the O-line is young, but they're not young because Ed Ingram's leading them. Cordell Thomas is redshirted. I mentioned Anthony Bradford redshirted. Dare Rosenthal's not a young guy, third year. Cameron Wire, not young, third year.
Mm-hmm.
So Charles Turner is going into his third year. So I think the O-line is going to shock people again because nobody's going to put LSU's offensive line in the preseason top 30.
Right.
But when they see Cordell Thomas ready to go and this Bradford kid from Michigan who's 6'7", about 350 muscle, there's a lot, the Perry kid who was hurt last year, Thomas Perry from Turling's Catholics, dad Adam Perry played at LSU. There's a lot of talent. The main thing is, and the final thoughts here,
right?
Chasen Hines has a potential to be an NFL lineman. Now, he started as a defensive end for LSU, and he looked great when he played as a freshman. So they moved him to O-line because they didn't have any bodies behind the starters last year. I'm really pulling for Chasen Hines to be a great player. He's out of Marshall, Texas. I think he could be a great center, and he's probably bottom line, Jace. That's the guy that probably the coaches are like, please take that job. Please be our dominant center. Please take over for Cushenberry.
Yeah, take it and run with it. So that's what the spring is about. It's position battles. It's that time of year. So we'll certainly keep up to date with a lot of things that are going on. And one more thing, I know the 7 jerseys just been given away to Jamar Chase. Who do you think is going to wear the number 18 jersey this year?
Oh, goodness. Jacob Hester started a good thing, too, at running back. Terrence McGee worked with us from Franklinton. He wore it really great. Foster Morrow.
And most recently, yeah.
Cushenberry couldn't wear it in a game at the Senior Bowl. He wore it in the game. I don't know, man. Maybe Ed Ingram. Maybe
Jacoby Stevens.
Maybe Jacoby Stevens. But it usually goes to an offensive guy. So, would they give it to a young sophomore? Would Ty Davis get it? Yeah, everybody that was key on offense kind of graduated except Ed Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
Would Brennan get it? I don't know. I mean, that is going to be a tough.
That could be a sneaky one.
I don't think they're going to give it to a defensive guy. So you don't have a tight end coming back that's got a lot of experience. You don't have an O-line except Ed Ingram. Dackless, I don't know. Then running back, Ty Davis, John Emery, won't go to probably either one of those. Would Torrey Carter get it?
I don't know.
He's tough.
I'm going to put my money on Stevens, and we'll see what happens just because he came back. I mean, who knows? Maybe I think this year it could be a defensive guy.
I'm gonna give you my wild card.
Okay.
Terrace Marshall.
Yeah, can be good. What about Kerry Vincent for coming back?
I'm going offense.
You going offense?
Because I don't think 18's ever been worn on defense.
Yeah, Benny Logan's worn 18. Brandon Taylor wore 18. There's a couple of them over the years.
If it's not an offense defense, you go with Jacoby Stevens.
Yeah, right. Just overall the first option.
Yeah, you go with him. And if it's not him, then I guess we just answered it. I think I'm just more on the offense. I know Jacob Ward and McGee.
Yeah. Foster, yeah.
But I think Terrace Marshall, if Jacoby didn't get it, Terrace Marshall came back from 2 injuries last year and showed a lot of grit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he broke a bone in his foot, and then he got hurt against Oklahoma and came back against Clemson. And, I mean, he made it happen. He didn't miss a long part of the season and broke a bone in his foot against Vandy, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have had probably 20 touchdowns.
Because at that point, I think he was leading the country in touchdowns.
So if Marshall doesn't go pro after this year, he'll get 18, I think. Or Brennan if he has a great year and comes back.
That's true.
That'd be pretty cool for a quarterback to finally get 18 possibly.
Yeah, I know Matt Malk wore, I think he kind of started it a little bit. He wore 18. So we'll just keep up with it and update you guys as well. So we'll kind of wrap it up. Any last thoughts on just kind of the podcast in general anything coming up, Louisiana Football Magazine, and anything?
Well,
like that?
we're trying to figure out who's going to be on the cover of our North Magazine and South Magazine in May. We're going to do our picture shoots. We don't want to give the date out, but we're not ready to give the date to any parents.
To be honest, we don't even know.
We don't even know. I've got a list of, and Jace has this too, but we've got a list of about 300 kids North and 300 South that are all in the running, all deserving to be on the cover. And moms and dads, just because you're not on the cover doesn't mean you're not in the magazine. You're going to be in the magazine if you're a player that starts for a 1A to 5A team or MAIS. We do the Sillimans and Riverfields and all them, Central Privates. So don't put too much of an emphasis that my kid's not on the cover. We take a lot of heat for that. But you can only fit 55 to 57 kids on the cover. And just imagine how hard that is for us. So we have to pick out so many per city, and all those that are worthy. And then we got to have so many positions per parts of the state, North and South. So it's very complicated. And we go over it over and over. And trust me, people, I go through like loose leaf paper the old way, scratch out, build another list, scratch out, build another list. And I do it by position. And what I do is I get the top 10 by each position, and then I narrow that to 5, and then I narrow it to 7, or I narrow it to 3.
It's a long process.
And then you take the top 10 on each side of the state, just talent-wise. They're going to be on it. And then you go with the leaders, and then you go with the best players. Then you go with guys that are just great high school players. You don't have to be a D1 player to be on the cover of our magazine.
Right. There's been a couple examples the last couple of years of guys that just had great high school careers and great high school players, but they're deserved because of their accomplishments.
But you can go on our site. It's under construction. We're actually redoing the site as we speak. It should be ready for early May. We feel like everybody's going to love the site. The look's going to be really nice. And then just go on our site and order a magazine. Or you could just send you can order it on our site, lafootballmagazine.com. You also see Twitter will be talking about it in about a month or two. And also we'll promote it on Facebook as we get closer to early May, especially May and June. And it'll come out in August. It's going to be 138, 142 pages. We're going to have our recruiting sections. We're going to have all Louisiana teams by North and South. We're going to have our separate covers. We're going to have all 310 high schools and all 12 colleges. And I just want to mention, this will be podcast number 9. Yep. And just tell all your friends, if you have any questions, we're not taking we're not talking about the mailbag this week. We're going to do that, start back next week with our mailbag. But if you have any questions or you want us to put anything on our podcast, give us your first name, the city you're from, and your question, and we'd love to talk about it.
Sure.
LAFootballmagazine.com, or you could email me, lbrecheen@aol.com. And Jace, give them your email.
Sure, you can email me. It's a pretty long one. It's Jace, J-A-C-E, Matthew, M-A-T-T-H-E-W, LeJeune, L-E-J-E-U-N-E, @gmail.com.
And we wish everybody a great weekend and be safe on the road, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.